My peace and joy is mine. Never again will you behold the power of my mind. I really do.
Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Getting Your Raise with your host, Schawayna Raie. Today, I'm going to talk about mental health in the Black community. And later on, I am going to introduce you to a young lady who I am very fond of. Her name is Camishe Nunley with Healing Your Hidden Hurts. And she's going to talk to me a little bit about what she does as a trauma mental health specialist. And she's going to kind of open up a communication and dialogue through me about mental health in the Black community, because a lot of us don't take the time out to have ourselves looked at, taken care of, or even concern ourselves with mental health counseling. So in the news, there's so much that's going on. People are killing each other, people are dying, people are killing themselves, and it's becoming a little bit more, I don't know if it's more prevalent in the Black community or if it's just one of those things that we're just now starting to talk about it. Or because of all the news media outlets and social media sites, we're able to kind of discuss what's going on in the Black community. But 63% of African Americans believe that depression is a personal weakness. 31% of African Americans believe that depression was a health problem. 56% believe that depression was a normal part of aging. And there's many barriers. And you know what? We just pray about it. I just sleep on it. I'll be over it tomorrow. This is just something I'm going through, but it's no big thing. But me, myself, a couple years back, almost had a nervous breakdown. I literally called our employee line and was crying hysterically, saying that I needed to speak with someone. It was to the point where I thought that I was going to have a nervous breakdown. I can honestly say that if I did not say anything at that particular time, if I didn't call anyone at that particular time, I would have continued on business as usual and continued to be in a state of craziness and slight depression. And I can say that I didn't take any type of antidepressant drug, although if that was prescribed to me, I would have taken it. But I was able to talk out some of my problems, and I just think I was overwhelmed with life. I was overwhelmed with work. I was overwhelmed with not knowing what my next move was going to be in my life. I am an overachiever, and I think a lot of my overachieving comes from me just not thinking that I'm good enough. And so I keep trying new things in order to make myself feel like I'm doing something better. And I keep challenging myself and keep challenging myself. And that is almost like a form of addiction. Actually, it is an addiction. It's an addiction to success. Always wanting to be great at everything, and always wanting to be great, and always wanting to do something that is better than who I am. Some of the barriers to treatment of depression cited by African Americans included denial, which was 40%, embarrassment or shame, which was 38%, or refuse help, that's 31%, lack of money or health insurance, 29%, fear, 17%, lack of knowledge or treatment, which is 17%. If you don't know that there's help out there, you don't know how to get help. And some of them felt hopeless. That was 12% of African Americans that were surveyed. And the worst thing that you can do as an individual is to not take care of your mental health. And I know back in my day, you went and you prayed about it. You talked to your pastor about it. You didn't go to a mental health specialist, because mental health specialists are basically people who are not ordained by God. And That's why I'm so happy that there's so many mental health specialists that incorporates spirituality into their treatment process, because there are a lot of people who need spirituality. They need their spiritual compass to kind of make them a little bit more secure about their progress in their mental health care. And the reason why I wanted to do this show is because I suppress a lot. Whenever bad things happen to me, I just kind of go on business as usual and act as if nothing is happening. And that's not healthy, because what ends up happening is you have one day where all of a sudden, boom, you have gone absolutely nuts, and everybody around you don't know what's going on because you've been putting on the face and you've been acting like everything is awesome and everything is exciting and everything is great, and you're carrying on and you're taking care of everybody else and you're not taking care of yourself. Mothers do this very often. They take care of the children, they take care of their husbands, they take care of their grandparents and their nieces and their nephews. They take care of so many people, but they forget to take care of themselves. And how can you be great for anybody else if you're not great for yourself? And so I want to introduce you to Camishe Nunley, who is with Healing Your Hidden Hurts. And she and I are going to sit down and kind of chat about some things that she's doing in the city of Indianapolis. And I'll also give you information as to how to get in contact with her. This is the interview with Camishe Nunley. I know that a lot of times women and the Black community, we don't believe in talking about the issues that we experience in our lives. I know when I was growing up, my mother said, what goes on in this house stays in this house. And what my biggest thing, my biggest thing now is I tell my grandmother now, I say, you know what, people's secrets are killing the nation, because everybody has homes, that they have these walls and a door to kind of keep them from being connected with the outer world. And in those box-shaped environments, you're able to abuse drugs, you're able to rape, you're able to molest, you're able to do so much, and then you're able to come back out into this society, into this world, and put on this face like, oh, everything is peachy king, everything is wonderful, absolutely. And I know that a lot of times in the church, we're taught to not talk about certain things. Certain things are taboo. And I know with me being a gospel inspirational recording artist, I was nervous about releasing the song that I released, because a lot of people don't want to talk about the sadness. They only want to talk about the happiness. But the sadness is what brings us to our happiness. And not because we need the sadness to be happy, but in our sadness, we find grace, mercy, and peace, and joy. And so let's talk about the stigmatism that deprives the Black community of reaching out to health professionals, mental health professionals in particular.
So what's really unique and how I know that you are incredibly anointed, Schawayna, is you speak to several issues, especially in dealing with the stigmatism of our field, that you can just feel it anywhere you go within our African American community. And so you being able to speak to it so in such a way, and not being afraid to speak to it, because that's what you find, right?
Amen.
People are afraid to tackle what this field actually is, and it's really because there is a lack of knowledge of what we actually do. So the stigma in and of itself is that you come to counseling and somehow you're crazy. For our African American community, it oftentimes means that you're not capable, that you're weak, and that, again, you're allowing people into your personal business. I'll never forget, I went on a radio show for a panel about Black women in Indianapolis and how, we're kind of being more accepted now and things like that. And one of the major things that they drove home was how much they dislike Tyler Perry. And not that I'm a super fan,
Right.
But the reasons of why they did not like Tyler Perry didn't line up with my
not being a fan.
Right.
Yeah.
It didn't line up with my frame of mind, my way of thinking, because they weren't fans because he highlighted some of the characters that actually exist within the African American family. And I think what they did not know that they were doing, that I quite quickly caught on to because of my training and background, is that they were under the auspice of this whole stigma of revealing what actually is.
Absolutely.
And not to say it was 100%, accurate what he was doing, but again, it is commercialized.
Absolutely.
He has to sell.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure there's embellishment there. But they were caught up on this idea of stereotyping the black woman or stereotyping the black family. But not all black families are like that.
Absolutely.
And that's what we get caught up in terms of where it comes to stigma. Because Kevin Hart, every one of these comedians, they talk about what goes on black families, but he's highlighting the problems with it. And so because we've been brainwashed to believe that you just don't do that, of course, Tyler Perry gets the backlash from a lot of African American families. So just to speak to that, stigma goes way back since the beginning of time, where people feel as though they cannot share because sharing means it makes them vulnerable.
I know myself, the first time that I ever went to go seek mental health services was last year. And I was so overwhelmed with school and work and church and starting a new business that I couldn't see the light of day, and I felt like I was about to have a nervous breakdown. And if I wouldn't have caught them in the midst of me feeling like that was going to happen, I probably wouldn't have sought out. And I tell you, it's been the best thing that I've ever could have done.
And I'm sure probably from your experience, you understand what goes on in the counseling room, and you know how vulnerable you have to be willing to be.
Absolutely.
But in their avoidance of vulnerability, what they don't realize is that they're missing out on the biggest lessons in their life.
Absolutely.
That a therapist helps guide them to understanding.
Absolutely.
Vulnerability is just a gateway to your strength. So the flip side of sadness is the opposite emotion, right? So if I didn't know sadness, I wouldn't know happiness,
Absolutely.
right? And so I have to go through in order to overcome. I can't skip over.
Absolutely.
Unless what ends up happening, we create this void within ourselves.
Yeah.
And it becomes about survival, or it becomes about carrying one bad or traumatic experience into the next without it ever being able to be truly healed. I don't know how many people, African Americans included, sit on my couch every day and say, what does it take for me to be healed, truly healed? Like, how do I know that something like that exists? And of course, me seeing this through with so many clients, I know what it looks like. I know what it sounds like. I even kind of know what it feels like when my client has healed. There's no objective or tangible entity that you can say, I healed. But when you know, you know.
Absolutely.
Right? And so the stigma, it's pervasive. And it is not until recently, at least within the Indianapolis area, that pastors have started to warm up to the ideal of sending, I call them parishioners, their congregation out to specialists, people who have been trained to deal with these, instead of trying to take it on themselves, which then, because they don't have the resources necessarily to, I guess, debunk the mind.
Absolutely.
They can now send them out to us, and what they don't realize, and I'll say this and I'll shut up, is psychology and theology have never been separate.
No.
Man made it separate.
Absolutely.
And so, and that's our innate, what we try to do in order to categorize things. Everything in our society we try to compartmentalize so we can understand it. This good, this bad. Which is just a childlike way of seeing
black and white.
Black and white.
Absolutely.
All the time. And so until recently, which is awesome because I'm able to now institute mental health ministries in different churches in and around Indianapolis,
Awesome.
that
And
the stigma is starting to lessen just
Absolutely.
a bit.
Yeah.
And you know the problems we've had around here, and so that's largely what brought them. And I know you know, God will use whatever He needs to use to show you, I've got this for you, but you have to lean on my understanding, not man's understanding.
Absolutely. I've seen a lot of people saying, you know, well, what's the purpose of praying if God already knows? Or what's the purpose of doing this if God can already do this or whatever? But what people don't understand is you accept the calling when your calling is a construction worker, when your calling is a nurse, or when your calling is
anything
that seems normal. But what you don't accept the calling for someone is if God can use you and give you that gift of being a construction worker and putting things together, because I know I couldn't do that. I tried some things at home and it didn't work. I can't draw and come up with a building as an architect can. I can write down some words and I can put them together in a song and it can become very beautiful. The same way I can do that is the same way that you can heal me mentally. And it doesn't mean that it's taken away from what God is doing. It's just that God is using you as a vessel to perform that particular task. I know a lot of times back in the days the church would say, well, the reason why you just go to God and God will heal it. And I remember this man was in a flood and he was on top of his roof, and as the water kept rising.
Flood, it's an actual story.
Yeah. And as the water kept rising, here comes a boat. It's God. Okay, go send it. Here's another boat.
Yes.
God, where you at?
That all the time.
Here's another boat. God, where you at?
And then he drowns.
I sent you 3 boats.
Yeah,
and
he drowns. He goes to heaven. He's like, God, what happened? I was waiting on you. He's like, man, I sent you like 3 boats.
But yeah, it's like, you know, we don't use the tools that are given to us in order to make us better. You know, a lot of times in the Black community, African American community, we always want to believe that there's some type of motive behind someone's wanting to do something. And I mean, in essence, sometimes there is a motive. However, that's when you seek God for discernment and you seek God for guidance and understanding and knowing what's going to be your best route to get to where you have to go. I want to talk about healing your hidden hurts and then some of the events that you guys are putting together, and just kind of, so if anyone is looking for, if there's a young lady out there that has experienced sexual abuse, if there's anyone out there that has experienced any type of psychological trauma, that we call post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of people only want to put that on people who have been overseas fighting in wars, but post-traumatic stress disorder or syndrome is something that occurs to anyone who's experienced some type of traumatic event. So if you are dealing with anything that you feel like you could use the services of healing your hidden hurts, make sure that you get with Camishe Nunley, and we will put her information on this video at the bottom of the screen, and you'll be able to get in touch with her. Talk about some of the programs that we have going on.
Absolutely. And before I speak to that, I just want to, you know, kind of sum up what you said, which is that, you know, whenever God puts something in you, it has to be expressed by you. And so because we've become so black and white as a society, and we're so bent on what's right and what's wrong, we don't recognize that even if you're called into construction, God put that in you, and it needed to be expressed by you. So it's not only pastors and reverends and elders that have ministries. We all have ministries. And I think Martin Luther King said it best, is if you're a janitor, you be the best janitor that you can be, so that when you're gone, people, that's your legend. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And so what I would encourage your audience members to think about, if they are going through any life situation, whether big or small, you have to stop trying to lean onto your own understanding, because that's where the problem exists. It exists in your mind. And so in order for you to overcome it, you need someone who's trained in clinical work or in dealing with psychological issues to help you untangle it. So exactly what you said, you know, it has to be expressed by you. Post-traumatic stress disorder, no, is not only for war veterans. they found a long time ago is that they affect the trauma industry far and wide. But that's the more severe cases, right? Not everybody who experiences a trauma has post-traumatic stress disorder, but it does permeate our society. People don't recognize it. Even subtle traumas, Schawayna, they don't have to be hit on or beat on or verbalized aggressively by their spouses or whomever. It can be something as simple as, when I was growing up, my love was conditional with my parents, meaning in order to feel loved by them, I would have to do something overwhelmingly good, which then later in life means to me, I'm not worth being loved unless I'm successful, right? So yeah, I mean, it can be something as subtle as that. And yes, something like that, Matsu Khan is a theorist who created what's called accumulative trauma. It accumulates over time to surmount to an overwhelming trauma. So, and that's how you know that the stigma is fake. Stigma is all fear. And whatever fear has to say is usually the opposite.
Absolutely.
And so
I like that.
faith cannot exist where fear stands. And as you know, we are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Yes.
But to get to my programs really quick.
I love that. I love that though. I love that. I love that. I'm just like soaking in all this good knowledge. And I didn't have to pay for it, so I'm like
And you will never have to pay for me. But because you helped me out a lot during the time where we were doing the empowerment things. So I feel it's my duty to put myself in a position to serve you in any way that I can.
Thank you.
In terms of our programs though, so typically our programs run 12 weeks at a time.
Okay.
And we are currently working on several different programs and getting them ready for the summertime to be up and going. But one of those programs is our anti-bullying initiatives. We have been fortunate enough to partner with the WNBA Indiana Fever and Camishe on our anti-bullying efforts. And so we actually have this big event that we do annually. And this is my second year being involved, where I actually get to go and speak to the kids, the stadium of kids. And can you imagine those lives you get the opportunity to touch? But part of the reason why they were interested in the partnership is because we wanted to help them take that event and make it a year-long healing process for the kids who have been involved in some type of bullying situation.
Absolutely.
Even the bullies, right?
Yeah.
There's the nuance. You have to be able to treat the problem. Which is typically not the bully, it's typically the family. The family. In order to actually get to some type of resolution. And so right now we're trying to get our program piloted. It's called Building Resiliency in Children. And so we call it BRIC.
Okay.
Is the acronym, and so we're trying to get it piloted in schools where we can go out to schools and help them develop a bully safe school.
Some people go to shopping, which I can say that
personally,
put it out there, that's my coping mechanism.
That's
Whenever
no
things are a big major issue for me, I go shopping, and then money becomes an issue, and then now I'm depressed because now I have no money because I spent it on. So if you are dealing with something and trying to find a way to cope, the healthy way to cope, then I think that this probably would be a great avenue for you. I know I might have to reach out to see if I might need to take some of these coping classes so that I can get better with my coping and everything. Another thing I do is I try to act like things are not occurring. That's my way of coping. I suppress. And I suppress very well. Like, if somebody died, it's like, I'll just completely act like they never died. I know that they're no longer here, but I'll completely act like they never died. I never address it, and it's just like it just never, ever, ever happened. And so I know that there's some deeper issues with me that I probably need to, continue on and everything like that. But I do so much.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, for real. No, for real. I'll be on her couch next.
Yes. But you know what's good, Schawayna, is that you're willing to make yourself transparent enough, even on your own show, to say to people, hey, I know, the exterior looks great. I keep myself up very well. I'm able to afford things and
Thank you. I mean, I'm trying not to go into tears and stuff like this. I'm like, stop!
I have the ability to bring that out somehow in people, and they're like,
I'm like all choked up. Stop!
My employees always tell me, Camishe, shut up.
Yeah,
stop.
I don't do all that.
The unfortunate part is I can't take it off.
Yeah, that's right.
It's ordained.
But it is what it is, and I mean, same here. I am who I am. You are who you are. You have to be who you are so that everybody else can be who they are. So it makes a difference. So I appreciate you being willing to come on to my very first show. It's so exciting. Well, this has been the first episode of Getting Your Raise with Schawayna Raie. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you were enlightened. I hope you take away from this to soul search. Check yourself. Ask yourself some questions. Ask yourself, do you need to be looked at by a mental health specialist? Ask yourself, have you been down and depressed or in a funk for longer than 6 months, longer than a year? Ask yourself if you just sporadically cry for no apparent reason. Ask yourself, do you get upset for little small things that in the past you would just brush off? Ask yourself if you feel overwhelmed. Ask yourself if you need help. A lot of times we don't want to ask for help. And help is out there for you. I am Schawayna Raie. I am your host. Thank you for tuning in.
There is a well where I can go that can fill me till I thirst no more. There is a place, a sweet secret place that can keep me in perfect peace. Do you want to know where you can go to be